Well, Mutek started in the year 2000, but in a sense, the roots of the idea come from many years before. In fact, I was working with the Festival of New Cinema, New Media, in charge of the new media section since '97, and within that framework, we had developed a concept which we called the Media Lounge, in which we presented during 10 days every year within this film festival. 10 days of elements that dealt with digital culture in a larger sense. Because my mandate was to define what new media was about. But since it was a film festival, it was kind of limited because at that time, I think image technology was not so evolved. And one of my strategies was to say that if you want to know what image making will become, you have to look at what's happening now in sound and music making. So we were programming music elements in this media lounge, but it was a bit stretching it. So pretty quickly I felt I was waiting for the moment to create a kind of a spin-off, which was conceived as a complement and as the opposite, the flip side of the same coin. So 6 months apart from the film festival, we created Mutek, which was, the idea was to track mutations in digital culture, but dealing more with sound and music. And for 2 years, I was running both events, like both elements. But Mutek grew faster than expected in a sense, and since 2 years ago, it became my main focus. So now we end up with just having one of the sides of the coin. So slowly we're gonna kind of rebalance things and really have an event that's not just about music and sound, but digital culture in a larger sense. Everything that deals with new media, multimedia, or even image making is so. It's a heavy process. It's a long creative process. You know, it takes 1 or 2 years to make a movie. It takes a whole team to make a movie or to make a CD-ROM or to make. So I think music in that sense is a much lighter process. 1. 2, because it's lighter, the technology is also more advanced, and it's more accessible. So I see the music field and the sound field, like sound art and all that, much more. I find much more creative, and it's like a constant source of creativity, which I find really interesting. Because what happens is, I think we witness the fact that there's a kind of a contamination. Like if you want to look at where things are going to go, if you look at what's happening now again in this field, that it's what is defining the whole. I find the whole culture in a sense, because that's where certain know-how is being established. And now you see that, like for instance, techno or electronic music in the last 10 years has infiltrated just about every art form. You find influences in dance, in theater, more and more cinema, publicity making, everything.
electronic scene, everybody wants to draw a reference. Oh, you sound like Autek, or oh, you sound like Coil. Oh, you sound like Pole. You sound like, well, basically half the people that are on this
Or you sound
festival.
like drum and bass influenced.
Yeah, drum and bass
jazz,
influence.
rhythm and blues, something or another.
You know, it's the challenges really aren't the biggest challenges are the, you know, a lot of the press that don't know how to talk about music properly, or you know, aren't familiar with like the nomenclature of like properly discussing music. A lot of the people that are involved in the sale, marketing, and all of these other aspects, all of the behind the scenes aspects of the music, many of them don't really know how to talk about it, and information is disseminated about these types of things about the music that give it a misnomer. They breed misconceptions about what you're doing, and that for us has been problematic because our stuff, probably draws from so many different sources that people can be like, oh, well, yeah, it's drum and bass influence when it isn't, or oh, it's jazz influence when it isn't, or oh, it's this, it's that, it's, you know, whatever. And it's, you know, that's the challenge, I think.
That can be a little bit frustrating when you spend a year on a record and then everybody within 2 seconds has already boiled it down to basically, you know, it's this, and this, and sounds like this guy and this guy and this guy. It's kind of, you know, I don't know, a bit frustrating, but
we're prima donnas about it, so
what can you do?
Yeah. Mutek is only the second time we've played with just laptops. We don't know how to do that, you know? That's not, we're more of like a band augmented by laptops, that kind of thing. So it's, well, maybe I'll speak for myself, but it's a little bit nerve-wracking to have to get up in front of that many people. It's a big crowd, and play just with a laptop. It's a little weird. But the challenges are, you know, how to make it, how to capture the essence of what's on the CD and how to perform it for people, how to actually perform as a musician. It's tricky.
And also make it feel like it's a one-time thing, like this performance is this performance, tomorrow it's going to be different.
Yeah, how to have them vary from night to night. Vary enough that it's interesting for us and interesting for the crowds, but also consistency is really complicated. Technically, it's a nightmare.
It's basically making it, you know, doing it under human power. It's the most important thing for us, and not as much of our own input into it as possible. So,
yeah.
So the next record will be more challenged. If you've seen us before, we had 3 people. Now we'll probably have 5, including drums and who knows what else, a vocalist.
Yeah.
And the fact is, we like to control everything on stage. We don't like to leave anything to the soundboard. We basically like to give them a left and a right, and that's it. And everything is taken care of on stage by us. So this means we also have to perform as engineers for our band that's going to be up there with us.
Most of it's done ahead of time so that we can just set up and sound check, make a few minor tweaks, and then it's fine.
Yeah, but the microphones and everything will be, you know, on our side to bring with us. So we'll see what the promoters say.
Granted and taken, desired and forsaken. You couldn't find this type of devotion even if you paid, man. Let them serve dual purposes, appear for more services. The first time's never enough to balance out the worth of this. It's granted and taken, desired and forsaken. You couldn't find this type of devotion even if you paid, man. Let them serve dual purposes, appear for more services. The first time's never enough to balance out the worth of this. Do I know you? It seems like I know you. Maybe I saw you before this particular moment I was shown to you. I never got that second chance to make a first impression, but I remember the first time I realized I had 2 weapons. A dangerous thought level capacity with the audacity to attract the classy and the trashy with the hopes to unmask me. We danced the way we learned through conditioning. Should I say dance? I mean communicate. Another thing worth mentioning is how we made it. I mean create mathematical templates. It's innate how we spend plates and eat from them. How can we be condemned when it's critical to remain constant? I mean make incredible comments with no intent to convince.
In fact, this year is pretty interesting because I think it's the end of a cycle for us. Like first, what I've been saying a lot is an artist like Akufen is the exact example. It's the example of this relationship that we have. Akufen, I've known him for years, like 15 years, and he was just getting totally angry about the fact that, you know, he believed he had talent, but he was unrecognized and all that. And Mutek became the springboard for his career because since he played the first time, he's released like many albums on German labels, and then had a full-length release a year and a half ago on Forcing, which made you know, brought him to be considered one of the newcomers, like most promising newcomers in worldwide, in fact. And there's other artists like Deadbeat, for instance, who released recently a full length on Escape, which is getting really good reaction. Tim Hecker, and in fact, when I say that it's the end of a cycle, like all these people are a part of this Mutek package or showcase that is being featured at Sonar this year. And Sonar is kind of, I think for most artists in electronic music, it's the final destination. And in fact, while we're bringing these artists under the Mutek banner at Sonar, there's another layer of artists which we're starting to work with, developing the Mutek label, and by the end of the year I think we're going to have, if everything goes well, 4 or 5 releases of Canadian artists. So we're starting to, you know, to again feed back into that community and trying to help structure things. And these are going to be probably the next generation of artists that we think are going to make it out there. Names that are not known, but sorry. Artists like Egg, Champion, Crack House, which is Deadbeat and another person.
I hate the fun generation. I don't like this part of techno music, actually. It could be a little more serious, I think.
You think it should be more serious?
Yeah, it should be more serious. Yeah, it should be more serious. It should be more political. There should be more content. There should be more attitude. Yeah. I mean, I'm not speaking of Mutek Festival or Mutek. I'm talking about the electronic music, techno scene or whatever as a whole thing. I mean, of course, there are always a few people who know, but I think there could be more. think for me techno is or playing live it's you need a performance, you know. It's also show and entertainment to give the people a little something else, a little how do you say that, a little change or whatever. We try to avoid this kind of thinking, you know, the straight whatever thinking. And since I'm listening to all kinds of music, I of course want to take that in the label too. And as I said, I don't want to be a techno label. I don't need that. I mean, there's enough techno labels. I don't need that.
Technology in the past 5 years seems to me to have, actually in some ways, got to affording new possibilities that weren't afforded before in terms of playing sound live and manipulating it live. But still within a structure of sounds that already exist, like samples or whatever. I don't know, in a way, I don't think that the medium is the message. To me, it doesn't really matter if you're using, the latest version of Ableton Live 2 point whatever, on a titanium powerbook, or if you're using a rack of 8-track cartridges. It's fundamentally still the same thing. What's important is the sort of disrespect that you have for it, and make sure that first of all, that you don't come out with cliches, and also that you don't use the equipment necessarily in the way that it was designed to be used, so it's like the preset, it's like the worst invention ever. It's exactly the same way as people buy the latest synthesizer and just use numbers 1 through 50. Software or any kind of piece of hardware intrinsically suggests a way that it should be used for convenience, and you have to try and avoid that if possible. So like if you put 4 8-track cartridge tape players in a box, that's not obviously the way they're intended to be used. And then if you hotwire the record, actually I didn't use 8-track cartridges, I was using cassettes, but I hotwired the heads on an automatic reverse car cassettes, they're actually 4 tracks, so you can wire them to use them like a 4-track machine. And I had a little switch box that Chris built that selected any of the 4 tracks simultaneously, or separately, or sequenced them, stepped through them, or could be played with a keyboard. So it was sort of like similar to a mellotron, but whatever was on the cassette was not, was pretty, you could have whatever you like. You know, and it's not really that different from having, you know, Live or Cakewalk, Acid or whatever, you know, providing a bunch of sequence, you know, things that you can cut in or sequence. It's fundamentally the same thing, but you just have to make sure that what you're doing is, you know, original and interesting. And in order to do that, you can't take the instructions as being the way that you ought to do it. That's one thing. And the other thing is, you have to, you know, you just have to make sure that the sound does it for you. You know, you have to make sure that whatever it is that you're inflicting on an audience, you know, actually, you know, means something to you first, and then hopefully that intensity of feeling will come across to the audience.
I met Coil, well, I was working at the time with Julian Cope, and I'd made a few records with him, and I eventually became the keyboard player in his touring group. And John came to see a show at the Shepherd's Bush Empire. Did you come as well? No. Just John came, and he wanted to meet me, so he got in touch with my manager and set up a meeting, and we kind of hit it off from the first day, I think, and after we became friends, I was eventually asked to join Coil, which was great.
Actually, you're responsible for Coil playing live, basically.
I am responsible for Coil playing live, because I said, you've got to be able to, it's so easy, you've got to do it. And many tears have been shed since that day. But, you know, here we are, we're still doing it, so... Took a lot of arm twisting though to make them do it.
success of the event is amazing. Like in terms of the response it has. Every year, the attendance nearly doubles. And this year it's too early to say, but I think we're about to say it's been exponential, practically. And it's the interest from everywhere, especially from outside of the city. In this city, it's I find it a bit frustrating, but from outside everywhere, it's just massive. Like this one off we did in Chile attracted 3,000 people, and it was a three week promotion process. Everything came together very quickly. So yeah, it's going well in that sense. I mean, it's going well everywhere except financially in a sense.